Tonight I just got back from watching The Conjuring Last Rites, which is supposedly the final Conjuring movie. I mean, I guess we'll see. It definitely feels like it's the final Conjuring movie. However, I also get the feeling that they won't be able to resist making more spin-offs and such. So we'll see what happens. And also I want to say just up front that this Conjuring movie feels very much like every single one that came before it. And I'm talking about the mainline Conjuring movies, not all the spin-offs. In the sense of like, okay, there's a family, there's a haunting, the couple kind of begrudgingly accepts the mission, and they come in and they try to save the day. And, you know, throughout we get some genuinely great scares, you know, and I think that's pretty consistent throughout the mainline Conjuring series. There's genuinely great moments in each of these. However, I do think that just like the rest of them, the ending, and I'm talking like the last 10 minutes or so, kind of leave a lot to be desired. You know, I think it's really just kind of the double-edged sword of being, you know, based on a true story. Like, obviously they're embellishing to an extreme degree to try and, you know, make this more cinematic, right? So you walk in there expecting that. However, because they are based on a true story, you know that, well, no one can really die unless it was like a real person who died, and even then they might find it in bad taste to like do that in the movie. So you know pretty much no one's gonna die, right? They actually do kill off some character, and I'll have to Google if this was ever like a real person or if this was like a character invented for the movie. I don't know. But in general, you know, like the main cast is going to survive. The demon is going to be banished or whatever, and the family's going to just kind of live out their days, you know. And that's pretty much where the ending of every single one of these movies is. However, it, you know, at least it does feel like a conclusion to the main lines, you know, following the Warrens, right? Because they do involve their daughter a lot in this one. And at the very least, you can see a through line through all four of these movies, how they've kind of had the daughter keep showing up, and then they show how she also has the same powers as the mom has, the ability to sense these supernatural things. And that really comes into play in this movie, you know, like that definitely becomes more of the focus of what's happening. So yeah, I guess in a lot of ways they do the groundwork to make it feel like this is a real conclusion. You know, the couple is really gonna like retire. We're gonna give this one last go, you know, because somehow this became personal. But yeah, guys, I don't know. I think the first Conjuring is still genuinely a pretty great film, but after that you kind of start seeing the formula, and I don't know, these movies have like a certain level of, I guess, cheesiness about them, you know. And I don't know if it's necessarily because they're like, you know, very faith-based, but also because, like, you know, like I said, in order to, for example, in the second one, right, the way they defeat the demon in the second movie is all they needed to do was figure out what the demon's name is. And so it ends with them like screaming the demon's name, you know, but in order to make it more cinematic, because that's not very exciting, they had to make it nighttime and it's raining and windows are shattering and doors are slamming shut and they're screaming the demon's name, and then the demon goes away. You know, so they can't do things the way that other horror movies would probably do it, where like they actually have to kill the demon or they have to destroy some crazy thing and several of the people die, you know, but like they can't really do that. So, you know, they do what they can to make it as cinematic as possible. But this one kind of ends in a similar vein of that, where you're like, okay, I see what you're doing here. You know, it's raining, glass is shattering, doors are slamming shut, people are yelling and screaming, but ultimately what's really happening in this situation is it's very simple. Like, I mean, I don't know if I want to spoil it, but it's like the most simple thing in the world, and you're like, oh, you really tried to make that look very dramatic. And I mean, you did the work, but you know, when you sit back and think about what they actually had to do to defeat the demon, you're like, okay, huh. It was probably very not exciting in real life, I guess, you know. And of course, you know, just like to go with that whole based on a true story thing, you also have the consistent feeling in the back of your mind while you're watching these movies of like, well, I know that this couple did these, you know, they did these jobs and then they wrote a book about a lot of the work that they did. And so obviously we're looking at it, not only, you know, this is how I described it. We are 2 levels removed from reality, right? Because there's what really happened in the real world, and then there's what Ed and Lorraine Warren wrote in their books as far as what happened, right? Like, you know, probably highly embellished accounts of anything that actually happened. And then beyond that, you have Hollywood coming in and even more so dramatizing and trying to, you know, make it more cinematic and epic, right? So there's 2 levels of reality removed that we're looking at this all through. So I don't know, I think for me, I was kind of struggling to like let go of that. I'd be like, no, it's a movie. I know it says it's based on a true story, but maybe I just know too much at this point. Like maybe I've watched too many videos about Ed and Lorraine Warren and everything that happened, and you know what I mean? Like maybe I know too much to like actually enjoy these movies still, and it's kind of ruining the experience of just watching a horror movie. But I don't know. I think it's also just that these are very, I guess the word is pedestrian, you know, like this is something that, hey, I've never seen a horror movie, or I don't even like horror movies really. Like this is something you take that person to, you know, these are like kind of generic. They're always going to be the same, but you know, it does have some genuine moments in it that actually are creepy, but there's definitely a lot of tropey, like, okay, they're doing that again, you know. So I don't know, overall I'll say that this one is fine. It's probably better than the 3rd Conjuring movie, if only because I can't even remember anything about the 3rd Conjuring movie. I remember the first one and the second one pretty well, and this one's fine enough. The 3rd one, literally a blank. I know I watched it, but I can't remember anything that happened in it. So it's better than that one, I guess. But yeah, overall, as a franchise, I think they're probably going to retire the Ed and Lorraine characters. This definitely felt like a send-off for them, but we're definitely getting more spin-offs. I cannot imagine a world where they're going to say, hey, we never want to use that Annabelle doll ever again, you know, or we never want to bother making another Nun movie or whatever. Like they're going to use those monsters in those designs, in that iconography, right? Like they own that iconography, they own that IP. They're gonna want to use it again. They'll probably not have the couple in there at all, you know, like this is probably the send-off, but like, yeah, they're gonna do Annabelle. In fact, in this movie, and I don't think this is a spoiler because it's kind of obvious, in this movie Annabelle shows up for several scenes. She's not involved in the plot at all. This has nothing to do with her, but they know that Annabelle is kind of like the thing that sells for this franchise. So they threw Annabelle in here any chance they could. Like, in times when it literally made no sense for the Annabelle doll to show up. Like, oh, we're going to focus on that for a couple of minutes. But why? This has nothing to do with what's going on. Why is Annabelle the focus of this scene right now? But, you know, they found a way because it's Annabelle and that's what people know. So, okay. Anyways, that is The Conjuring Last Rites. It's fine. You know, I feel like The Conjuring has always been a thing that I love more in concept than in execution, because the idea of having a franchise where we're following this couple who investigates and, you know, protects people against supernatural stuff, and that way every movie is a different supernatural thing, like a ghost or a demon or whatever, right? Like, in concept, that's really cool, you know, because it's basically, I guess, the Supernatural TV show, but as a movie franchise where you can, you know, and then having it based on a true story kind of gives it that extra novelty factor. But like I said, the based on true story is also a double-edged sword, so here we are. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about The Conjuring Last Rites, or The Conjuring in general. And, you know, do you think this is really the end? Are we never seeing Annabelle ever again? Doubtful. So, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys later.